The glossy veneer of the late-night talk show studio masked the growing tension behind the scenes. In the green room, Cal Ripken Jr., baseball's Iron Man, sat quietly reviewing notes for what should have been a routine interview about his legendary career and new youth baseball initiative. The Hall of Famer's calm demeanor gave no indication of the storm that was about to unfold on live television. Remy Doyle, the show's newest and most controversial host, paced in his private dressing room, scanning a hastily prepared briefing about his upcoming guest. Known for his acerbic wit and confrontational style, Remy had built his reputation on creating viral moments at his guest's expense. Tonight, he had set his sights on what he considered an easy target: baseball's perfect attendance record holder. The studio audience buzzed with excitement, unaware of the producer's growing concern. Jasper Trent, the veteran showrunner, had caught glimpses of Remy's planned questions during the pre-show meeting and had attempted to intervene. But the host had waved him off with his characteristic arrogance, insisting he knew how to create memorable television moments. Behind the main stage, Holden Briggs, Ripken's longtime media manager, felt an unusual unease as he watched the show's opening monologue. Something in Remy's tone, the sharp edge to his usual sarcasm, suggested this interview might veer from the standard promotional appearance they had agreed to. The studio lights blazed as Remy launched into his opening segment, his signature smirk playing across his face as he introduced his guest. Tonight we have a man who's famous for showing up to work. I mean, that's basically it, right? Please welcome the human time clock, Cal Ripken Jr. The audience's applause carried a note of uncertainty as Cal emerged from backstage, his practiced smile and wave masking any reaction to the host's dismissive introduction. He wore a simple blue suit that spoke of quiet confidence rather than flashy celebrity, his manner carrying the same steadiness that had defined his 21 seasons in Major League Baseball. Remy's first question set the tone for what was to follow. "So, Cal, can I call you Cal? You're basically famous for perfect attendance. I mean, did your mom write you a lot of notes in school too?" The host's laugh carried a sharp edge that didn't quite reach his eyes. Cal's response was measured, showing the same patience that had carried him through 2,632 consecutive games. "Well, Remy, showing up consistently is important in any profession. But I'd like to think I did a bit more than just show up during my career." The host leaned forward, his smile growing sharper. "Oh, right, the other stats. But let's be honest, isn't the streak just a fancy way of saying you refused to take a day off? I mean, how many games did you play where you probably should have sat out? Where you might have actually hurt the team by insisting on playing?" A subtle shift occurred in the studio atmosphere. The audience's nervous laughter died away as they sensed the interview taking an uncomfortable turn. In the control room, Jasper Trent began signaling frantically to his floor director, but Remy deliberately avoided looking at the monitor where the producer's warnings flashed. Cal's expression remained composed, though something flickered in his eyes, not anger, but a kind of disappointed recognition, as if he had encountered this type of shallow understanding before. Every player deals with injuries and fatigue. The streak wasn't about personal glory, it was about responsibility to the team, to the fans, to the game itself. Responsibility. Remy's voice dripped with sarcasm. Or just stubborn pride. I mean, let's talk about September 6, 1995. You broke Lou Gehrig's record, great moment, sure. But wasn't it all a bit self-serving? Taking a victory lap in the middle of the game, shaking hands with everyone including the hot dog vendors. The studio temperature seemed to drop several degrees. In the wings, Holden Briggs started moving toward the stage, but Cal gave him a subtle signal to stay back. The Baseball Hall of Famer leaned forward slightly in his chair, his voice carrying the same steady authority that had made him a natural leader in the clubhouse. "That lap wasn't my idea," he said quietly. "My teammates pushed me to do it. The fans demanded it. It was a moment of celebration not just for me, but for the game of baseball, for the city of Baltimore, for anyone who believes in showing up every day and giving their best effort." Remy wouldn't be deterred from his chosen path. Sure, baseball, Baltimore, apple pie, all that good stuff. But come on, the streak became bigger than the game, didn't it? I mean, how many times did you play hurt when a backup might have done better? How many young players never got their shot because Cal Ripken Jr. refused to take a day off? The question hung in the air like a hanging curveball, but Cal didn't take the bait. Instead, he sat back slightly, studying the host with the same focused attention he had once used to read pitchers. The studio audience had grown completely silent, sensing they were witnessing something more significant than a typical late-night interview. What happened next would be talked about on social media for weeks to come, analyzed by media experts, and debated by fans across the country. But in that moment, just before Cal Ripken Jr. made his decision, the only sound in the studio was the soft hum of the air conditioning and the increasingly nervous shuffling of the production staff. The Iron Man of baseball was about to remind everyone that sometimes the most powerful statement isn't made through words or confrontation, but through the simple act of choosing when to walk away, and more importantly, how to do it with the same dignity and grace that had marked his legendary career. The tension in the studio had reached a breaking point. In the control room, Jasper Trent was frantically signaling for a commercial break, but Remy Doyle, riding high on what he perceived as his moment of triumph, pressed on with his attack. The host leaned forward in his chair, his designer's suit reflecting the harsh studio lights as he prepared to deliver what he thought would be his viral moment. "You know what's really interesting about your streak, Cal?" Remy's voice carried a false warmth that fooled no one. "It's that in today's game, no one would even want to break it. The modern player understands the importance of rest, of peak performance. Maybe the streak was less about dedication and more about, what's the word I'm looking for, obsolescence." In the front row of the studio audience, Walker Jennings, a former major league pitcher who had faced Ripken numerous times, shifted uncomfortably in his seat. He had seen that same focused look in Cal's eyes before, not anger, but the kind of intense concentration that had made him one of baseball's most formidable competitors. Cal remained still for a moment, his hands relaxed on the armrests of his chair. When he spoke, his voice carried the same measured tone he had used throughout his career, whether addressing rookie teammates or hostile media. "That's an interesting perspective, Remy. Would you mind if I shared a story?" The host's smile faltered slightly, thrown off by his guest's calm response. "Sure, as long as it's not another baseball cliché about grit and determination." "Actually," Cal continued, "it's about a conversation I had with my father. He was my first coach, you know. One day, when I was maybe 12 years old, I wanted to skip practice because I was tired. He sat me down and said something I've never forgotten. He said, 'Cal, being tired isn't about your body. It's about your commitment.'" Remy opened his mouth with another sarcastic comment ready, but Cal raised his hand slightly, a gesture so quietly authoritative that it silenced the host mid-breath. In the wings, Holden Briggs watched with growing admiration as his client handled the situation with characteristic grace. "You see, Remy, the streak wasn't about just showing up. It was about showing up ready to perform, ready to contribute, ready to lead. Every single day for 2,632 games, I had to earn the right to be in that lineup. No manager keeps playing someone for 17 years just because they have perfect attendance." The studio audience, which had been holding its collective breath, released a soft murmur of appreciation. Even some of the camera operators, usually focused solely on their technical tasks, were nodding in agreement. But Remy Doyle had built his career on creating confrontational moments, and he wasn't about to let this opportunity slip away. "That's a nice story, Cal, really heartwarming. But let's talk about the real numbers. How many times did your streak actually hurt the team? How many games did the Orioles lose because you were too stubborn to take a day off?" In the control room, Jasper Trent was now standing, his headset clutched in his hands as he watched the situation spiraling beyond his control. On the monitors, he could see Cal Ripken Jr.'s expression shift almost imperceptibly, not towards anger, but towards something that looked remarkably like pity. "You know what's interesting about numbers, Remy?" Cal's voice remained steady. "They tell stories, but not always the stories we think they do. During the streak, I was selected to 19 All-Star teams. I won 2 MVP awards. I helped my team win a World Series. Those numbers tell a story too." The host's smile had become fixed, artificial. "But isn't that just proving my point? You became bigger than the game. The streak became more important than the team's success. I mean, let's be honest, towards the end, weren't you just hanging on to protect the record? Nolan Carrick, one of the show's junior producers, had moved to the edge of the stage, sensing that something unprecedented was about to happen. He had seen many controversial interviews during his time with the show, but this felt different. The tension wasn't coming from emotional outbursts or raised voices, it was coming from the growing contrast between Remy's desperate attempts at provocation and Cal's unshakable composure. Cal sat forward slightly, his eyes fixed on the host. You know what's really interesting about your questions, Remy? They reveal a fundamental misunderstanding of what it means to be part of a team, part of something bigger than yourself. The streak wasn't about a record. It was about responsibility. Responsibility? Remy scoffed. To what? To some outdated idea of playing through pain? To proving you're tougher than everyone else? No, Cal replied, his voice carrying the quiet authority that had made him a natural leader throughout his career. Responsibility to the game. To the fans who spend their hard-earned money to watch us play. To the teammates who count on you. To the young players who look up to you. Every day, I had to earn the right to be in that lineup. Every single day. The studio had grown so quiet that the hum of the air conditioning seemed thunderous. Even the usually restless audience sat perfectly still, sensing they were witnessing something more significant than a typical talk show confrontation. Tell me something, Remy, Cal continued, his tone remaining conversational despite the weight of his words. In your career, have you ever been part of something bigger than yourself? Something that demanded your best effort every single day, not just when you felt like it. The host's face flushed red. This isn't about me. We're here to talk about your obsession with a record that, let's be honest, nobody really cares about anymore. At that moment, something shifted in Cal Ripken Jr.'s demeanor. Not towards anger or frustration, but towards a kind of clarity. He stood up slowly, straightening his jacket with the same deliberate care he had once used to adjust his batting gloves. You know what, Remy? You're right about one thing. This isn't about you. It's about respect. Respect for the game. Respect for the fans. Respect for the people who show up every day and give their best effort, whether they're playing baseball or driving a bus or teaching in a classroom. The host's smirk wavered as he realized he was losing control of the situation. Come on, Cal, you can't seriously be comparing playing a game to real work. Actually, Cal interrupted, his voice firm but not unkind, that's exactly what I'm doing. Because baseball isn't just a game. It's a mirror of life itself. It teaches us about perseverance, about teamwork, about showing up every day ready to give your best effort. But I can see that's not something you're interested in understanding. In the control room, Jasper Trent watched in amazement as Cal Ripken Jr. did something no guest had ever done in the show's history. The Baseball Hall of Famer turned to the audience, offered a polite nod of appreciation, and then looked directly into the main camera. To everyone watching at home, especially the young athletes who might be questioning the value of commitment and perseverance, don't let anyone convince you that showing up, working hard, and being dependable are outdated concepts. In any field, in any endeavor, character still counts. Then, with the same quiet dignity that had marked his entire career, Cal Ripken Jr. began walking off the stage. But before he reached the wings, he turned back one last time, not towards the host, but towards the studio audience. And remember, he said with a slight smile, sometimes the most powerful statement you can make is knowing when to walk away and how to do it with grace. The studio erupted in spontaneous applause as the Iron Man of baseball made his exit, leaving Remy Doyle sputtering in his chair, his carefully crafted moment of viral fame transforming into something entirely different than what he had planned. What happened next would shake the foundations of late-night television and remind everyone that true class can't be faked, and real strength often speaks most loudly through silence. The silence that followed Cal Ripken Jr.'s exit was deafening. For several seconds, the studio remained frozen in a tableau of stunned appreciation, the audience's spontaneous applause having faded into a charged quiet. Remy Doyle sat in his host's chair, his usual smirk replaced by an expression of dawning realization that his attempt at creating viral content had backfired spectacularly. In the control room, Jasper Trent was already dealing with the avalanche of incoming messages. Social media was exploding with clips of the interview, most notably the dignified way Cal had chosen to end it. Maddox Price, the show's social media manager, watched in amazement as the hashtags #RespectTheStreak and #IronmanClass began trending nationwide. Backstage, Holden Briggs fielded calls from major sports networks requesting comments, while declining all with the same grace his client had just displayed. Cal's actions speak for themselves, he told each caller. Sometimes silence says more than words ever could. The show's next segment was scheduled to feature Quade Benson, a young baseball player who had specifically requested to meet Cal Ripken Jr. Now, the production team scrambled to adjust as the reality of what had just transpired sank in. In the green room, Quade watched the monitor with a mix of disappointment and admiration. "You know what's remarkable?" he said to Owen Thatcher, his agent. "That's exactly how my dad always described Ripken, dignity under pressure. He just proved it's not just about how you play the game, but how you handle yourself when people try to diminish your achievements." Back on stage, Remy Doyle attempted to salvage the situation with his usual sarcasm. "Well, folks, I guess some people can't take a joke. Maybe all those games without a break made someone a little too serious." His weak laughter died as he realized the studio audience wasn't joining in. In fact, several audience members were already standing up to leave. Among them was Harper Ellis, a former Baltimore Orioles season ticket holder who had witnessed hundreds of Ripken's games during the streak. "I came to see Cal Ripken Jr.," she announced loudly enough for everyone to hear. Not to watch someone mock one of baseball's greatest achievements. The exodus became a movement. Row by row, audience members stood and walked out, their quiet departure making a statement as powerful as any shouted protest. Remy's attempts to maintain his composure crumbled as he watched his studio audience dwindle. In the production booth, Uriel Clayton, the network executive who had championed Remy's confrontational style, was already on the phone with his superiors. The show's ratings had been strong, built on viral moments of celebrity discomfort, but this was different. This wasn't just a bad interview. It was a public rejection of the very philosophy that had defined the show. Social media continued to explode. Xavier Boone, a prominent sports journalist, posted a thread detailing the actual statistics behind Ripken's streak, the All-Star appearances, the Gold Gloves, the MVP awards. For those wondering if the streak was just showing up, he wrote, "Here are the numbers that prove it was about excellence, not just attendance." The broadcast continued, but the energy had been irreparably altered. Remy's subsequent segments felt hollow, his jokes falling flat in the half-empty studio. The remaining audience members sat in stony silence, their presence feeling more like an indictment than support. Emmett Vaughn, one of the show's veteran cameramen, later described the atmosphere. "In all my years in television, I've never seen anything like it. It wasn't just that Cal walked off, it was how he did it. No drama, no shouting, just pure class." And the audience followed his lead. They didn't storm out angrily, they just quietly stood up for what was right. In the parking lot, Victor Sloan, a security guard who had worked at the studio for 2 decades, watched as Cal Ripken Jr. left the building. "He thanked every staff member he passed," Victor later recalled. "Even smiled and signed an autograph for my kid. That's when I realized the streak wasn't just about baseball. It was about being professional in everything you do." The show's final segments were a study in discomfort. Remy's trademark confidence had evaporated, replaced by a nervous energy that manifested in forced laughs and stumbled jokes. The few audience members who remained seemed to be staying more out of morbid curiosity than entertainment. Meanwhile, in sports bars and living rooms across America, the clip of Cal's exit was being shared and reshared. Camden Hollis, owner of a popular Baltimore sports bar, described the scene. "The whole place went quiet when they showed the clip. Then someone started clapping, and soon the whole bar was applauding. It was like Cal had just hit another home run, but this time it was for something even more important." The next morning's headlines told the story. Iron Man shows steel, Ripken's dignified response to mock interview goes viral, read one. Class act, baseball legend teaches late-night host valuable lesson, proclaimed another. But perhaps the most telling was the simple statement from a Baltimore sports radio host. Cal Ripken Jr. just showed us why the streak was about so much more than just showing up. Social media analytics revealed a fascinating pattern. Levi Brooks, a digital media analyst, noted that the most shared moments weren't the host's provocative questions or even Cal's responses, they were the small gestures. His patient smile, his measured tone, the dignified way he straightened his jacket before walking off stage. In the following hours, support poured in from unexpected quarters. Sterling West, a retired NBA star known for his own durability records, posted, "What Cal Ripken Jr. did tonight wasn't just defend his legacy, he showed us all how to handle disrespect with dignity." Some records aren't about numbers. They're about character. The show's producers held an emergency meeting. Zachary Ellis, one of the senior writers, spoke up during the tense discussion. "Maybe we need to consider that going for shock value isn't sustainable." What happened tonight? It wasn't just about Cal Ripken Jr. walking off. It was about the audience walking off with him. In the network offices, decisions were being made. Dean Whitmore, the programming director who had originally signed Remy Doyle, watched the footage again and again. "The irony," he noted to his colleagues, "is that Remy got exactly what he wanted, a viral moment. He just didn't expect it to be a lesson in class and dignity rather than controversy." By midnight, the clip had been viewed millions of times. Felix Monroe, a social media researcher, tracked its spread. "What's fascinating is the commentary. People aren't just discussing the walk-off, they're sharing their own stories of standing up to disrespect with dignity, of choosing grace over confrontation." The impact rippled beyond sports media. Brody Stanton, a business leadership consultant, used the clip in a seminar the very next day. "What we witnessed," he told his audience, "was a masterclass in professional integrity. Notice that Ripken never lost his composure, never responded with anger. He simply demonstrated through his actions why character matters." As the night wore on, the story continued to evolve. What had started as an attempted takedown of a baseball legend had transformed into a powerful reminder of why the streak had meant so much in the first place. It wasn't just about playing 2,632 consecutive games, it was about bringing dignity, professionalism, and unwavering commitment to everything you do. In Baltimore, where Cal's streak had become part of the city's identity, the response was particularly poignant. Garrett Lowe, owner of a downtown restaurant near Camden Yards, summed it up. "Cal showed the same qualities tonight that he showed throughout the streak: patience, dignity, and the understanding that how you handle yourself matters more than any record." The episode would mark a turning point in late-night television, though few realized it that night. The era of gotcha journalism and manufactured controversy had met its match in the quiet dignity of a baseball legend who understood that true strength often speaks through silence, and real class shows itself most clearly in how you handle disrespect. 1 week after Cal Ripken Jr.'s dignified exit from the late-night show, the ripples of that moment had transformed into waves of change throughout the entertainment industry. The morning sun streamed through the windows of the network's executive offices as Jasper Trent prepared for what would become a pivotal meeting about the future of late-night television. Finnegan Hart, the network's president of programming, had spent the week analyzing not just ratings and social media metrics, but the thousands of letters and emails that had poured in from viewers. The response had been unprecedented, not for its volume, but for its substance. People weren't just reacting to a viral moment. They were sharing their own stories of choosing dignity over drama, of standing up to disrespect with grace. In Baltimore, at an impromptu gathering at Camden Yards, Elias Mercer, the Orioles' current manager, addressed a group of young players. "What Cal showed us last week wasn't just about baseball or media," he explained. "It was about understanding that your character speaks louder than any words, that how you handle difficult moments defines who you are." Remy Doyle's show had gone dark for a week of scheduled retooling. Behind the scenes, Isaiah Brooks, the show's head writer, led his team in examining every script, every planned segment, every attempted joke. "We've been mistaking cruelty for cleverness," he admitted during a staff meeting. "Cal Ripken Jr. just showed us there's nothing clever about disrespecting someone's life's work." The clip of Cal's exit had taken on a life of its own. Preston Gray, a digital media analyst, tracked its evolution. "What's fascinating is how it's being used. Business schools are showing it in leadership classes. Sports teams are using it to teach young athletes about professionalism. It's become a touchstone for discussions about dignity in the face of provocation. At the network, Rowan Blackwell, who had initially championed Remy's confrontational style, found himself facing difficult questions. "We thought controversy equaled content," he explained to his board. "What we didn't consider was the power of genuine integrity." Cal Ripken Jr. didn't just walk off our show, he walked away with our audience's respect. The impact extended beyond television. Seth Brantley, a prominent sports agent, reported a surge in requests for Cal's speaking engagements. "But here's what's interesting," he noted. "They don't want him to talk about baseball. They want him to talk about character, about maintaining dignity under pressure, about the kind of strength that doesn't need to shout to be heard." In the world of social media, where conflict and controversy typically ruled, something unusual was happening. Tate Winslow, a digital culture writer, observed the phenomenon. People are sharing their own, walking away with dignity stories. It's become this movement about choosing grace over confrontation, about understanding that sometimes the strongest response is simply refusing to engage with disrespect. At youth baseball camps across the country, coaches incorporated the incident into their lessons. Upton Reese, a longtime baseball instructor, explained his approach. "We're not just teaching kids how to play the game. We're teaching them how to carry themselves, how to handle criticism, how to respond to disrespect." Cal just gave us the perfect teaching moment. The ripple effects reached the corporate world as well. Vaughn Mercer, a leadership development expert, began using the clip in his seminars. "Look at Cal's body language," he would tell his audiences. "Notice how he never raises his voice, never loses his composure. That's what real authority looks like. It doesn't need to assert itself, it simply is." Back at the network, changes were already in motion. Wyatt Callahan, the new showrunner brought in to reshape the late-night landscape, had a clear vision. "We're not abandoning humor or entertainment. We're just recognizing that you don't need to tear people down to lift an audience up." The incident had sparked broader discussions about media responsibility. Zeke Hamilton, a media ethics professor, used it as a case study in his classes. "What's remarkable is not just what Cal did, but what he didn't do. He didn't engage in argument, didn't respond with anger, didn't try to embarrass his host. He simply demonstrated through his actions why respect matters." In Baltimore, where Cal's legacy was already secure, the story took on additional meaning. Jonas Crow, curator of the Sports Legends Museum, added a new display. The tie Cal had worn during the interview, donated alongside a simple statement about dignity and respect. "It's become one of our most popular exhibits," Jonas noted. "People stand here and talk about their own moments of choosing grace over conflict." The show's production team was transformed. Easton Hale, who had worked behind the scenes for years, described the change. "It's like we all woke up. We realized we'd been chasing the wrong kind of entertainment. Real impact doesn't come from mockery. It comes from authentic moments of human dignity." A month after the incident, Remy Doyle made his return to television, but with a noticeably different approach. The sarcastic edge was gone, replaced by a more thoughtful style of humor. During his opening monologue, he did something unprecedented. He apologized. "I thought I was being clever," he admitted to his audience. "What I was really doing was dismissing someone's lifetime of dedication and professionalism. Cal Ripken Jr. taught all of us, that true strength isn't about tearing others down. It's about standing up for what's right, even if that means walking away." The sports world embraced the lesson. Jack Penrose, a veteran sports broadcaster, summed it up during a special report. "The streak was never just about showing up. It was about showing up with purpose, with professionalism, with respect for the game and everyone involved." Cal demonstrated that same principle in that studio. Showing up isn't enough. It's how you carry yourself that matters. As the story began to fade from headlines, its impact continued to resonate. Keaton Wells, a behavioral psychologist, studied the phenomenon. What made this moment so powerful was its authenticity. Cal Ripken Jr. didn't plan a dramatic exit or deliver a prepared speech. He simply demonstrated the same qualities that made his streak remarkable: dignity, integrity, and quiet strength. The network executives finally announced permanent changes to their late-night programming. The new format would focus on celebrating achievements rather than manufacturing controversy. "We learned something valuable," Noah Sinclair, the new programming director, explained. "Respect isn't just the right thing to do, it's what audiences actually want to see." In his first public comment about the incident, made during a youth baseball clinic, Cal remained characteristically humble. "Baseball teaches us many lessons," he told the gathered young players. "But maybe the most important is this: your character shows up in every moment, not just the big ones. How you handle disrespect says more about you than any record or achievement." The story had become larger than television, larger than baseball, larger than any one moment. It had become a testament to the power of dignity, a reminder that true strength often speaks most eloquently through silence, and that sometimes the most powerful statement you can make is simply choosing to walk away with grace. As the media landscape continued to evolve, the Ripken moment, as it came to be known, stood as a turning point. It reminded everyone that in a world of viral videos and manufactured drama, genuine character still resonates, true integrity still matters, and dignity, quiet, unshakable dignity, still has the power to change not just a moment, but an entire culture. The final word perhaps belonged to Orion West, a young baseball player who had been in the studio audience that night. In an essay that went viral itself, he wrote, "I came to see a baseball legend. What I witnessed was something more important, a lesson in how to handle yourself when the world tests your character." Cal Ripken Jr. didn't just walk away from disrespect that night. He walked towards something better, showing us all the way.